Wanted for war crimes and crimes against humanity, the International Criminal Court finally issues an arrest warrant for the Sudanese president. Was it the right decision or a case based on political hypocrisy? And how will it affect the war in Darfur? This is Inside Story. Welcome to the program. I'm Imran Garda. The International Criminal Court confirmed from The Hague earlier on Wednesday that Omar al-Bashir is a man it wants arrested.
Omar al-Bashir is suspected of being criminally responsible as an indirect co-perpetrator, or in the alternative, as an indirect perpetrator, for intentionally directing attacks against an important part of the civilian population of Darfur, Sudan, murdering, exterminating, raping, torturing, and forcibly transferring large numbers of civilians and pillaging their property.
Well, joining us now are our guests in Khartoum, Abdurrahman Khalifa, lawyer for the Sudanese government. In Washington, D.C., Omar Ismail, policy advisor to the Enough Project. And in New York, Alex Dawal, a director at Justice for Africa. Thank you very much for joining us, gentlemen. Mr. Ismail, if I could start off with you. It is official now, the arrest warrant issued for charges including war crimes and crimes against humanity, but no genocide there. Do you believe that this was the right decision?
I don't know if it is the right decision. The court reserved the right to go back to the genocide after having evidence and more evidence, and if the prosecutor wants to go that way. The fact that there was a dissent, one of the judges dissented on the decision, and the majority of two decided that is not genocide, it does not take away from the fact that President Bashir is now an indicted criminal. All they needed is one count of the 10. Now they have 7 counts. Crimes against humanity and war crimes are not less heinous than genocide by any means in my mind. An
indicted criminal who performed heinous crimes, says Mr. Ismail. Abdurrahman Khalifa, I'm assuming you're not very happy with this decision from the ICC.
Well, obviously, it's not a question of being happy or unhappy. But I feel very bad that today this is, they are butchering justice today. And today they have committed fundamental breaches of established rules of international law. And today a new face of imperialism is just showing up. And it is quite regrettable, and it's very sad. However, if anybody wants to say this is international community, then this is simply against the will of all the African countries, all the Arab countries, and the group of the 77, China and Russia. This is only United States of America and France and United Kingdom, and some very few NGOs that have very close ties with certain intelligence circles. And I mean, the whole thing went as designed. There was no surprise. It was very much expected, the whole scenario, and it was very well played by this pre-chamber phase, and it was very well played by Ocampo himself.
Okay, let's bring in Alex Dawal. The ICC prosecutor Ocampo didn't get all he wanted, particularly with regards to genocide so far, but does he have a strong case?
The prosecutor put 10 charges down last July, and he made great play of the genocide charge. In fact, it's really the only thing that he has talked about. And the job of the 3 judges of the pre-trial chamber was not to adjudicate on the guilt or otherwise of President Bashir, but to determine whether he had a case to answer, whether a crime within the statute of the International Criminal Court had been committed, and there is reason to believe that President Bashir was responsible. Now, the fact that they threw out the genocide charge shows that even a very, very low standard of evidence was not produced by the prosecutor. And I think the prosecutor has to go away and lick his wounds, because actually this is something of a humiliation for him. However, Omar is correct that even one count now makes the president of Sudan, internationally speaking, a fugitive from justice. And notwithstanding the position of the Sudan government, many African states have signed up to the International Criminal Court. Now, whether it is in the interest of peace and stability for this prosecution, this investigation to proceed to the point of bringing President Bashir to court is another matter. And that really is the job of the Security Council to decide. And up to now, it has had a very hands-off position. It hasn't decided one way or the other. The African Union, the League of Arab States have made it quite clear that they don't believe that this is in the interests of peace and security. They believe it should be suspended or dropped entirely.
Yes, well, you said that there are a lot of countries now who have a responsibility, given that he's an international fugitive. Mr. Dawal, over 100 countries are obliged now to arrest him. Does he have anywhere to go?
Well, it's not as simple as that. And it's not as simple as that in 2 respects. One is that as a serving head of state, he does still have many privileges. The arrest warrant is being served on the government of Sudan, so it's up to the Sudan government to hand him over, and clearly that's not going to happen. But secondly, there are other major interests that exist in Sudan, and notably in the commitments that the Government of National Unity, headed by President Bashir, has undertaken for elections, for a referendum on self-determination in southern Sudan, for peacekeeping forces, for humanitarian operations. And if the attitude of the international community is, we can't negotiate with this man, we can't negotiate with his government at all, what is going to happen to all these agreements that have been signed? This is a very, very serious issue.
Let's bring in Abdurrahman Khalifa. Omar al-Bashir has signaled earlier that he doesn't respect Mr. Ocampo's charges. He doesn't respect what the ICC is trying to do. What is Sudan going to do now? Is it simply going to close its eyes and wish that the charges go away?
Why should they close their eyes? They will open their eyes and keep walking and keep going. And if it comes to the question of respect, it's not only Omar al-Bashir who does not respect this court or Ocampo. All the Sudanese people show great disrespect to the ICC and to Omar Bashir, to Ocampo. But this is beside the point. Now we are not concerned with that issue. The court, we are not going to succumb to the pressure. This is designed to bring about maximum political leverage over the government of national unity, and that will never take place.
What about the fact that the United Nations says over 300,000 people have died in Darfur in this conflict that is continually raging? What about the concept of justice and accountability? Somebody must be to blame in this war.
Well, I mean, this is not the forum of justice. This is a political setup, and the way they behaved has not shown the least legal aspect, but there is a lot of politics. It's loaded with politics, and it has been pushed by certain countries that have some political agenda against Sudan. Justice, everybody wants justice, but this is not the forum for justice.
But if the president has nothing, if the president has nothing to hide, why doesn't he stand up and face those charges at The Hague? If he's so confident, surely he'll win.
Well, you don't oversimplify the issues. This is, we do not recognize that the ICC has any jurisdiction over any subject of Sudan. It's as simple as that.
It's as simple as that, says Mr. Khalifa. Omar Ismail,
yeah.
I'm assuming you'd disagree.
Absolutely. Sudan is part of the nations that are party to the this institution that we call the United Nations. The ICC did not come to Sudan by itself. It was referred to this case by the United Nations Resolution 1593. and people are talking about Africa and the African nations and the respect to the international law, or this is irrelevant. The case was looked at by these judges. They determined that President Bashir committed these crimes, and they indicted him in 7 counts. He is now an international fugitive in the eyes of the court and in the eyes of many people around the world, in the eyes of Sudanese people. Yes, the lawyer of the government is talking about the Sudanese do not respect the International Criminal Court. I beg to differ. There are lots of Sudanese who respect that. If they were given the chance freely and fairly to express their sentiment, they will do. However, when you talk to them through the chief of the Sudanese security, who says we are going to cut off heads and limbs, I don't think any Sudanese will dare come out and show their support to the International Criminal Court.
Mr. Ismail painted it as a country of fear where no one wants to speak out against the president. Mr. Khalifa, your response?
Well, I think that is expected from Mr. Ismail, who he's a chorus of Prendergast and these groups. And by the way, I have to set the record straight. I'm not the lawyer for the government. I'm a private practitioner. I'm an associate professor of law. So when you say it, that means I'm not neutral. This is not the case. However, I don't.
That's how you were introduced,
agree.
Sir.
I don't agree. I don't agree in the least with what he says. You could go to the streets now in Khartoum and all the major cities in Sudan, and you could see the masses coming out spontaneously in full support of Bashir and in total disagreement with this ICC. You could see the different political parties voicing their own stance against this ICC. This has unified the Sudanese people like they have never been unified. This is a fact of life. Everybody could come and see it.
Okay, gentlemen, we have to take a short break and thank 2 of our guests, Alex Dawal in New York and in Khartoum, Abdurrahman Al-Khalifa. Thank you very much for your thoughts, gentlemen. We'll be back in the second half of the program after this short break.